Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry if the lighting's really bad today. There is no light. It's just dark. It's 12 o'clock and it's just very, very dull and grey today. So today we're going to be doing the start of my series on series. So I've divided this into 4 parts. There's going to be like my series that I am up to date on, that I haven't finished the series, but that's because I'm waiting on the next book from the author. Then there's going to be a series that I have started and not finished, and that's completely my fault, and I have no excuse for not having finished the series. There's a series that I am not finishing and am DNF'ing, and there are a series that I have finished. So today is going to be the series that I have DNF'd. And there are 28 of them that I have dropped during my lifetime. I mean, there may be more that I've forgotten about, but this is what I have got written down. Some of them I've read more recently and can give a few more thoughts on. Some of them I can't really remember why I've dropped them. I just obviously decided that they weren't for me. So to start us off, so the first one on top of the list is the Shifters series, which is a paranormal romance series with, I think it was werewolves or werecats or some sort of thing. I read the first book and it just didn't really do anything for me. Like, I think it was meant to be like one of those fast-paced, really quick and easy to read series, but it just wasn't, so I decided not to continue on. Next, Exquisite Captive I think that was by Heather Demetrios. And this is like an older YA series back from 2014 about genies. And I read it this year because I'd owned it for years and just hadn't got to it, and it hadn't aged well. It was just very YA and very run-of-the-mill. Next, Enchanté, which I think it's going to be a duology. And I read the first book, and for me it worked very well as a standalone. So I don't really feel the need to keep going with it. Like, it didn't wow me, it was just fine. And it's wrapped up relatively well, so I'm just happy to leave it as it is and just forget about it from now on. Defy, it was another very, not boring, like very run-of-the-mill YA series that just did not work. Well, it was just the same as everything else, and I really didn't like it for some reason. Did I not like the love interest? I don't know, but it was very just bleh. And then, okay, this one's a bit more controversial. I will not be continuing with Aurora Rising, but it just was fine, but it was cringy, and I've heard that the second book is even more cringy, and so I'm just not. I think I've moved on from like the majority of the YA sci-fi books, that I'd much rather read adult sci-fi, apart from Skyward, which I love, but I don't know, it was just a bit too cringy. Also a bit more controversial is Saga, the graphic novel. I read the first volume and maybe it was just too weird for me, I don't know, but I was like, what even is this? Like, I don't understand why so many people love this. Maybe graphic novels aren't for me, like I haven't read that many of them, but I just did not understand the hype, and I was like, that's it? That's what everyone's going on about? And it was just weird, and I'm not going to continue. And then we have The Unraveled Kingdom. Fine. There's no real reason. Just, it was fine. The same with Ruined. Again, that one's by Amy Tintera. Again, it was fine. It's a YA series, and I think if I had all 3 books when I read the first 2, I would have finished the series, and I would have just completed it and read them all back to back, because they were very bingeable. Like, they were so compelling to read. But because I didn't have the 3rd book, and now it's been so long, I just can't be bothered to go back and read them all. Crazy Rich Asians. I found the book pretty boring. I just could not get gel with the writing style. The film though, the film of Crazy Rich Asians, that is amazing. I love that film. That is a far better the adaptation of that book is amazing. It's just such a happy film. But the book wasn't for me, and so I won't be continuing. If they do the film, the second and third book as a film, then I will definitely watch that, but I won't be reading the book. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, it was fine, but I have no desire to keep going. The Bargainer series, again, I read the first two, and really compelling, very easy to read, but the third one wasn't out, and now I just can't be bothered to reread them and get to the third one. Everless, yet again, it's a duology, the second one wasn't out and I can't be bothered with it. Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan. I read the first 3 books and I read them as an adult. I never read them when I was a child, and that is the big mistake, that I wasn't the right demographic for it when I read it. And now I just can't connect with it. Like, I was reading the first 3 books and they were just very samey, and I just didn't connect with them, and I think that's because I read them as an adult and I was too old for them. And so I just gave up after the 3rd book. I was like, I can't be bothered with this. It's definitely, I can understand why it works so well for kids, but it's not for me. Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I read the first 2 books, and I think I started the 3rd one on audio, and I couldn't remember anything that had happened, and I was just speeding up the audiobook because I was like, is anything going to happen? Like, what's going on? I don't really get... So I just gave up. And I haven't continued. To All the Boys I've Loved Before, I really enjoyed the first 2 books, and I was happy with them being a duology, and then to announce the 3rd book. But it's been so long since I read the first 2 that I don't feel the need to continue with it. I'm very happy having my memory and nostalgia of the first 2, but I don't feel the need to keep reading the series. And again, the films are so good. Dune, it was a fine YA series. The whole series wasn't published when I read the first 2, and it has been so long, and I don't think I'd enjoy it now because it's going to be too YA and tropey for me. I don't know if I want to say this one. The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, don't hate me on this, please. As a child, my father read to me The Hobbit, The Fellowship of the Rings, and we were in the middle of the 2 towers. And then we just never finished. Like, I don't know, maybe I grew up and we just never got around to finishing the series. And so it's probably my oldest DNF because I DNF'd it as a child, but it wasn't like an active, I don't like this, I'm not reading this ever again. It was just, we just never finished, and there's no one's fault to it. And I think that series is one that I could go back to later on in my life. I don't feel the need to read it now. I don't know, it just doesn't compel me to read it right at this moment, but I think I could. I don't think it's a permanent DNF for life. I think that one's like, it could come back into my life. And then Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I read the first 3 books and I loved the first book. I was completely obsessed with the first book, and then I like marathoned the TV show, and then I read the second book and I enjoyed the second book, but it was too long. And then it took me so long to read the 3rd book. It felt like it went on and on and on. And then because they all just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and none of the 2nd and 3rd book were not as good as the 1st book. Like, I didn't connect with it as much. And I've owned the 4th book for years. Like, there it is right here. And I don't think I'm ever going to get to it, quite honestly, so I can't bring myself to read that 1,000-page book. I really can't. Another one, oh no, you can see it. Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, the Farseer trilogy. And I want to love Robin Hobb, I really do, because she's got so many books and some of them sound really interesting, but I found Assassin's Apprentice really boring. It was so slow and dull, and part of me thinks maybe I should try the Live Ship Trader series, but then I'm put off because they're all gigantic, and I'm like, if I found that one boring, what am I going to think about a gigantic book? The Lady Janie's, it's just YA, it was fine. I enjoyed the first book, but I just haven't got any desire to read the rest of them. Every Heart a Doorway by Sean Maguire. I don't know, it just wasn't for me. I don't know if it's because I listened to them audiobook, but I just could not get the hype for those novellas, that series. I just could not get it. So that one, not continuing. A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. I read, I can't even remember when, maybe like 2012. I read the whole series that was out and I really enjoyed it. And then the third season of the TV show had just come out when I was reading them. And so I watched all of the TV show and I was obsessed, and I've kept watching the TV show. But now it has been so many years since I finished that 5th book that I have no desire to continue. If and when another book ever comes out, I would have to reread all of them to get to that 6th book, and I have no desire to do that. Girls of Paper and Fire, I thought it was a standalone, and I think it would work as a standalone until the final page. It was like, she was like, this is going to be a standalone. Oh no, wait, here's your final page. It's actually a series. And I was like, no, just leave it as a standalone. So, not bothering to continue with that. The Brilliant Death by Amy Rose Capetta. It was fine. It was fine, but I can't be bothered to continue. Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was worth the hype that it got. It was a fine YA series. I think I gave it 4 stars. But it was not as good as everyone made it out to be. And then I heard that everyone that loved the first book didn't really love the second book. So, I can't be bothered with it. Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. I read the first 3 books back in like 2014 and I enjoyed them, and then I hadn't got around to continuing, so I started rereading them to then continue, and then I've just been midway through the 3rd book for years, and I don't think I will ever continue with that series and finish it. So, and I've heard very mixed reviews about the 5th and 6th book, so that just really puts me off continuing, so goodbye. And then my latest DNFs would be Rage of Dragons, because Tao is awful and just, I cannot bear to be in his head ever again. So, that book, no way, Jose, am I continuing with that series. And then the final series, the very final one that I will not be continuing, is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, because there was no world building. I could not imagine anything in that book. Like, apart from that the spaceship supposedly looked like apartment blocks, there was no description of anything. Sorry, those two annoyed me. Very much. Probably because they're most recent, so I have very vivid memories of not liking those books. Right. So, those are all the series that I have put down and will not be continuing. Please don't come at me for any of those. And yeah, I mean, I'd say maybe try and persuade me to continue with them, but I don't know how effective you will be. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!